truth and preservation of our soul shine. I can feel it, yours and mine. Close your eyes and witness it inside. In your bones, you will know. Trust and let go, and let it flow.
Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And today I have with me, among many other things, spiritual and business coach Jennifer Whitaker. And we were talking a few minutes before I pressed the record, and I was like, oh, shoot, I should probably press this. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to connect with you and communicate with you and have an amazing conversation. And I welcome you to the space.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I know we just had this juicy conversation for everybody listening. Perhaps more of it will bubble up in today's conversation, but we just kicked it off, just going deep, right to the point. So I anticipate a really beautiful conversation today.
Oh, hands down. But first, what do I want to ask? The one question I get two questions. First is, tell me a little bit about your spiritual journey, and the last one is, how do people find you? So everything else is just a conversation. So I'm starting off with, tell me a little bit about your spiritual journey.
Oh my goodness. It's like, where do I start? When it comes to like the business journey, it's like you can really easily answer that from like point A to point B. The spiritual journey has been a winding path. I would say that I have always been on a spiritual journey. I've always known that about myself. I was always a very sensitive child, always drawn to the natural world and to animals. And that was my life. That was my passion. That's where my spirit came alive, was in the community of animals and trees and rivers and stones and the dirt and all of that. And I went on to actually study the natural world. I got a botany undergrad and a master's degree in primate conservation, and started a really lucrative career working with Jane Goodall and I was one of the youngest philanthropy executives in my field. So I was the vice president at the largest chimpanzee sanctuary in the world. I worked from some pretty global animal welfare and environmental organizations. And while I was a very spiritual person, I felt like I was like compartmentalizing that side of myself when I was in the executive space, which
Yeah.
is really interesting because, right, I'm working with animals, I'm working with nature, which is very spiritual, yet I felt very disconnected from my spirit in the midst of doing the nuts and bolts of my job. But I was really successful in my career. Scaled businesses to over $30 million, was on the front page of the New York Times, all of these beautiful external things. But over time, I felt very disconnected from myself. I was tired of putting the spiritual Jennifer on the back burner, or maybe not even the back burner, but just not being able to be fully embodied and bring that part of myself into my work. And so there came a moment when I realized I really needed to make a big change in my career. And I went on to study the divine feminine for 3 years at seminary school, and became a certified coach as well. And I thought right out of the gate, I was going to be helping women. What I say is like embody their divine worth, kind of their self worth and divinity blended together. And pretty shortly after I started my business, I had again like a lot of success, but I started burning out again. And I'm like, how did this happen? And I was like, I had the divine feminine rituals. I studied the divine feminine. I should know better than this. And I realized I clearly had the strategy. I knew how to build businesses.
Mhm.
I clearly had the rituals to call in money. So that part worked well. But I found that I didn't have anything to hold me through the day. So I would start my morning in my spiritual practice. And then an hour into my day, I would bounce right back into this like strategic hustle autopilot because that's how my body was like wired to survive in this world. And I was like, I need something that can hold me in place in my feminine energy, in my spiritual nature, like in this. And I looked for other coaches and mentors to help me with this. And all I could find were either programs that were designed for business that were very masculine, or I found exactly what I was doing, a business program that had a little bit of like feminine energy, divine feminine sprinkled on top. And, but nothing like the framework that I was looking for. And so I'm like, what do I do? And I was in a horse therapy session. I was in a corral. I was in meditation. I was standing in this corral, and Buddy the horse comes up to me, nose to my nose. And I heard him say, "You are me. I am you." And all of a sudden, I got the download of the program and my methodology that I have today. And I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, I am nature. You are nature. Why am I trying to operate in this world? Why am I trying to operate a business outside of nature? I need to be combining my body, my lifestyle, my business with the seasons because I am the embodiment. The feminine is the embodiment of nature, of the moon, of the tides. What if I started living my life in alignment with nature instead of like working against it, instead of like trying to launch things or have like start out the year strong in January? Why am I not hibernating and going inward and reconnecting with my soul and my spirit? And
Mhm.
so I started to redesign my life and my business to align with the seasons. And I feel like that really unlocked a whole different soulful, deeper side of myself even more. Like I was already on this spiritual path, but it has so deepened the connection with who I am and with other people like you. And it's just opened up this beautiful path to feminine abundance while being deeply rooted in my divinity and my sacredness. And so that's kind of a blend of the spiritual and business and how it's kind of merged together more recently. But yeah, that's where I'm at today.
That is so yummy. I just like I love that because like I tuned in this year and I felt like what's with the New Year's? Like
Hmm.
why is it in the dead of winter, like a week and a half after the winter solstice? It doesn't make sense. So I had a sister tell me, a soul sister tell me, she's like, well, actually, the New Year's Eve is the day before your birthday, and that felt really yummy. I'm like, oh yeah, because it's the last day before I start my new year.
Yes.
But I was like, that feels really amazing. And then I tune in again, and I was like, well, the spring equinox feels more like like close to spring equinox is like what really feels like the new year because everything's sprouting, everything's coming out of hibernation, and that energy feels so much more aligned. And then, of course, because I'm a former historian, I researched. And like this construct that we have is artificial to keep us out of
Hmm.
sync. And so
Exactly.
to really tune in, like I'm Aquarius, I love the winter. I love February because February is like that in between, and it's this yummy. I still get to like bake and do all the yummy things, make soups and all that stuff. And then when spring comes, I'm like, okay, where's the garden? I want to start planting.
Hmm.
And it's planting the seeds for whatever wants to come through. And it feels so much more aligned to be in that state of awareness. I've always eaten seasonally, but well, not always, but like since I've been awake about that, I've been eating seasonally. And to bring that more deeply into every aspect of my being is so like, of course, but it's not of
Yes.
course until you realize it's of course.
Yeah. It's like I feel like the first awakening and the first time I heard that our menstrual cycles were connected to the moon and the tides. And there was this part of me that was like, oh my gosh, of course. And then there was this other part of me that was like, wait, what? Why am I just learning about this in my 30s? Why am I just hearing about this? Why isn't this taught in schools? Like, so there was this like really sacred, angry feminine raging part of myself, and this other one that was like this deep knowing of like, oh, this feels so right. And it sounds like a very similar response to even the seasonal energy for yourself, because yeah, I have my clients start their annual planning in February, because that is in bulk, according to the Celtic wheel of the year, when the first little sprouts are coming out of the ground. That's when we start to plant, and bloom for the year. But I don't even have them, move into creating offers or launches until spring, but we start the early planning process in February.
Totally makes sense because it's like it's removing our, well, as we both know, the energy of the old system, which is collapsing now,
Mm-hmm.
um, is very controlling and dominating and stifling to the soul. And so it like the disconnect from the intuition that has been dominating the narrative for so long feels like it's crumbling because we're choosing to disconnect from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this simple step, simple act, simple choice of living our lives in alignment with the seasons is a reclamation of the feminine. I mean, we've been living long enough by this Gregorian artificial calendar to go back to our roots and how we used to thrive in our bodies through our abundance, through our well being. This returning and reclaiming, I think, is revolutionary, and it will change the paradigm. I mean, we already are in a paradigm shift, but I believe that this will speed that up from a very rooted place. I think
Mm-hmm.
like the biggest way to disconnect a woman from her power is to keep her busy and disconnected from nature. And when you go back into nature, you slow down. So the busyness actually stops. And so it's an automatic reconnection to power where we're taught like power and success is taught by action, it's taught by like mindset. But I feel like even mindset practices are a very masculine thing. We're trying to control our thoughts. But when we return to nature, we actually, all of that strips away. It is the simplest and the easiest way to return to our magnetism without having to overthink, without having to overact, overproduce, over hustle.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree because I know, like, my ideal, it doesn't happen often, but like my ideal is to like lay down on the ground for a couple hours a day, just.
Mm,
And I do know that this past fall I went hiking at Silver Lake Falls in Oregon, and magic because there's 7 falls there. And
yeah.
so I hiked around a couple of them, and then I got guided to go back to the car. And on the way back, this little meadow just yanked me down and said, "Take off your shoes." I lay there for about 20 minutes post hike. I've never done this before. I was high, like not like psychedelic high, but like just so filled with bliss and peace. And I didn't know where my car was parked. I couldn't find my way to the bathroom. I was like, it was so beautiful though, because like I was so disconnected from the masculine energy,
Yes.
fully in the present, because nature had just recalibrated me completely. Not just from the hike, but from the like I have to do that every hike because it's this state of like really like fully integrating all of the smells and the, all of the beings that are there, and just really just anchoring it into your body. And I know when I'm not, I have a grounding pad on the bed. I like, it's not even an option because when I get into my old state of being, which is what we all grew up in, I get anxious, I get disconnected. I watch myself scrolling on my phone. I'm like, interesting that I'm seeing that. And then that's just me reminding myself, oh, that's just an old pattern that's
Mhm.
heavily ingrained epigenetic of disconnecting from self. And I now have an opportunity to just show up for myself in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you bring up epigenetics because even in the science of nature, we know that when we are sitting in nature, and this is likely what happened in your experience, when you sit in nature, it activates that cellular memory. And so it's not just a cellular memory of trauma, because that's what we hear about so much through epigenetics, but it's also a remembrance of who we were and who our lineage was before the trauma. So, like, when I look back at the first banks that ever existed, priestesses actually held the money. The first bank was to the goddess Juno Moneta, yet we're taught that money and business is a very masculine thing. But if you precede our trauma of patriarchal trauma, actually, the truth is that we women were the holders of wealth. When we look at the origin of the word abundance, the Latin word is abundo. The word currency, the Latin word is chorea. Both are associated with flow, which is feminine. When we really break this down and we move past the memories of trauma, the memories of who we really are embodied, wealthy, abundant, powerful women are that's awakened in nature. And so I believe that when you were laying in that meadow, there was an activation of the truth and the true embodiment of who you are. And that is going to feel blissful and like you're high. I mean, it's activating all of the chemicals in the brain waves that align with Mother Nature. And that is what you were feeling, Mother Nature's frequency.
And it's just magical. Like I know, I was 2 years ago. I was up in Orcas Island, and it was near the solstice, the summer solstice, and I was about a half mile from a beach, ocean, sunset. I would sit and watch the sunset for 2 hours a day on a rock. Just and like if anything showed up on the ocean, it was amazing. But I was just like, I can't move, and it was just like, how present can I get? And I was back up in January, and my friend Kim has this plum tree, and I stayed with her the last time I was up there. And plum tree, like just the first day I was there, plum tree's like, "Hey, hi." She's like, "You're present with me." 3 hours, I could not pay attention to that plum tree. I was just so in awe of like the birds flying on it and like whatever it was. It was just like it was just nope, you're present with me. I'm like, wow, okay. I don't care about anything else right now. And that's what happens when we get in that state, because there is nothing else.
Yeah. Time slows down. We hear everybody like, oh my gosh, this year just flew by. And the older you get, the more time flies by. Well, it is when you are busy and disconnected from nature. When you live by the seasons, when you live connected to nature, actually everything slows down and becomes so magical. And it makes life so fulfilling and so sacred.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. I am the slowest person for hikes because all the trees want to talk to me. I have to say hi. And when I eat, I'm very present. And that, like most people are like, your food's getting cold. I'm like, I know, I'm chewing. I'm allowing my body to receive it. And it's just like, even little things like that, just like how do we show up for all the things we ingest, all the things we do so we can be more in the state of being than doing. And
Yeah.
I had a dream this morning, and I felt the energy of I'm trying. And my I am presence came in and said, you don't need to try anymore. And I felt this huge sigh of relief echoing in my body, like all the dimensions where I was at, like into this one. And like, how deeply programmed is that trying energy?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the alignment shift that I feel is exactly what when women come to me, they're coming to me for this shift in their business. But it is a shift from trying and trying and trying to fit into a box and a structure and a system that wasn't designed for you. You can try forever, but you're going to be stuck and you're going to be exhausted and you're going to feel depleted. Instead of trying, why not release that and just allow yourself to be? And your alignment will take care of itself.
so beautiful because like that whole shifting gear, and I have Kuan Yin and Mary Magdalene are two of my guides, and they regularly are like, you can slow down some more. But I'm slow, and they're like, we need more. And this is kind of
Yeah.
balance because I grew up in Connecticut, and that energy of Connecticut and the whole New England energy is like go, 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 go. And so the longer I'm away, I've been out here since in West Coast since 2007. So it's like it's almost gone. It's almost, and it's just fascinating to see like when it shows up. And last week it showed up a lot because it moved so many times. So like this week it's like, let's just bring us back down to the quiet, the presence, the joy of beingness. And it's so like we don't have to have that all the time, but the more and the more we gift ourselves with it, the better our lives are going to be.
Absolutely. It's amazing that it doesn't take that much time to reset ourselves and realign. I mean, obviously, the more you can be in nature, the better. But even through science, we're seeing, I recently bought an EEG headband. I'm totally geeking out on like how nature is affecting brain waves, and it's this at-home headband. And in a millisecond of going outside, your brain waves shift to a more relaxed and calm state. How amazing is that? A millisecond.
Yeah, and it's like simple things like just taking your shoes off.
Yes.
That's like a
Yeah.
game changer. And
Mm-hmm.
I know when I was little, I rarely wore shoes. We had a cabin.
Me too. Yeah.
We had a cabin in Connecticut, and I had to walk through some East Coast cedars. So the fronds are prickly, and I remember going ow, 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 running down to the beach because I couldn't stand having shoes on, and it didn't matter if I was going to prickle my feet. I was like, I'm not putting the shoes on.
A wise child. I love that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So tell me, I'm just tuning in. Tell me what are some of the biggest ahas for your clients when they work with you? Like, is there a
Mm.
theme? Is there like,
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest ahas is actually when they're able to move through one of the biggest limiting beliefs I think we as a society have. And there's this belief that if we slow down, we're going to lose money. And it does take a somatic and nervous system reset. It does take a little bit of mindset work, which I do with my clients. But when I guide them to look for evidence in times in their lives when they have had, whether it's a very lucrative month or year, was it because they worked really, really hard? Was it because were in their flow? And 9 times out of 10, it was during times of joy where they were deeply connected to themselves. And so they're able to see that evidence. And for those who aren't able to look back on their own lives and find evidence, I have them look to other people who may have had wealth and abundance from a very easeful state and aligned state. So it begins to just naturally rewire and reprogram their thoughts of like, okay, well, maybe this isn't actually true. Maybe I was just believing this lie that society has taught us. And so as they see that, and as they soften, and as they find some safety and grounding in their own body through nature practices, they all suddenly start to magnetize like amazing clients in their biggest seasons of rest. And they're like, whoa, okay, it does get to be easy. This isn't just, you know, a nice cliche mantra or saying, but they're actually experiencing it that. And that is a huge shift. And that actually starts the path for them to take a lot more time off or take time to meditate on an idea or be fully unplugged on vacation or have a slow morning before they start their day and know that that actually is the most productive thing that they can do, not actually hustling and pushing harder.
I love that. My mornings are usually like, I'm ready to do stuff at around 10:30 or 11.
Yeah, my day usually starts around 10. Yeah.
It's not that I'm not doing stuff, it's just it's all self-care and meditation, and I have a Healy device that I run. And, I have my chai in the morning and I'm really present with that because I love all the flavors of it. And so it's really just like nurturing myself so that when I show up for whatever it is, I know I'm in my space of groundedness and connectedness with myself and that I've nurtured myself. And then I can show up for others.
Absolutely. And when we are in alignment, we're in our flow state and we can get everything done in a fifth amount of the time. So then we have even more spaciousness. And the more spacious that we have, the more aligned we are. And then you keep adding up the numbers. And it's like you're suddenly so productive, not to fill that extra spaciousness with more work to do, but suddenly you're productive. You're getting more things done because you're in your flow. And so it's simple and easy. And now you have all this space to even have more space, more bliss, more joyful, which makes you even more magnetic to the things that you want, to more abundance, to the dream people that you want to be working with. It's just like this amazing ripple effect by simply taking that time, that space, which, yeah, it's a reframe. It's not like you do this before you work. This is the work. This is part of the work.
It is because, like, I've noticed, especially on this crazy ass journey that I've taken the past 6 months, um, if I do, it's not a choice. I have to take care of myself
Hmm.
because if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of the animals.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, where am I showing up for myself and where am I not showing up for myself? Like,
Hmm.
where is that little space where I still have people pleasing with animals?
Yeah.
I caught that one of my last sits. I'm like, interesting how that's showing up because I'm so caring about the dog that I'm not caring about myself. And then we got into, overstimulate. Both of us were overstimulated. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm the one that has a presence of mind to know how to take care of myself. But like one of the things I love doing is rubbing the kidney meridian. That normally calms anyone down. And he wouldn't let me rub his.
Mm.
Interesting. Because he knew that I knew that we were both overstimulated. And I'm like, okay, I'm taking care of me. Can I help take care of you? And he was like, yeah, no, I don't want you to. And I'm like, yeah, but you really need it, feel it. And it was just so fascinating. But like once I had that awareness that I was like overstimulating myself to take care of him, I pulled back.
Hmm.
Because it's not serving either one of us for me to be in this hyper state because you're a puppy and like you're a German short haired pointer who's like energy. And like, I'm like, okay, how am I serving him if I'm not serving me?
Yes. Yeah. And I say a burned out woman can't serve anybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Have you found resistance with any of your clients at any point?
Oh, absolutely. Before any breakthrough, there's always going to be some resistance.
Mhm.
That's when the things that we think that we've overcome or dissolved or healed, they always reemerge. Maybe not as
Yeah.
intensely as they did originally, but through every new level, new breakthrough, there's going to be a little bit of resistance. Yes. And so it's all about just bringing that into awareness. It's like, oh, this is a sign that I'm actually growing, actually expanding versus what's wrong here.
Mhm.
So the ones that really do expand into their next level, embrace that resistance instead of try to create like instead
Mhm.
of like judging it or trying to get rid of it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, okay, let me bring some love to this. This is just a part of me that's scared because I'm actually expanding and growing into my next level.
That's
Yeah.
because it's so important to like have that reframe because I used to I used to do a lot of inner child work. And
Hmm.
I've been doing research since I was 18. So this is like 38 years right now of research. Bring that to a 6-year-old. And I used to be able to find anything. I'm not making that claim anymore because I'm not doing that kind of research. But like I could find the smoking gun to anything. It was sadly usually EPA Superfund site stuff that I really didn't like doing. But I turned that on my 6-year-old. And
Hmm.
my 6-year-old one day said, "What are you doing? You're re-traumatizing me." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, you're trying
Right.
to find out the thing. Why don't
Yes.
you just let me feel?"
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that I was re-traumatizing you. I'm so sorry. She's like,
Hmm.
just don't do it anymore. I was like, okay. So that's like when I got out of my intellectual former academic self into feeling.
Hmm.
And that shift is so like our society teaches us to be in our brains
Hmm.
and to get into the feeling state of like, what do I feel right now? What what does my body need in this moment without words? So
Yes.
somatic work is my favorite because I don't have to think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We absolutely, that's where our power lies, is in our bodies.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's a fascinating way to, or awareness to unwind from that programming though.
It is. It is. And that's, I keep going back to nature because I feel like when we can step away from the world by either just going and putting your hand on a tree, going for a walk, sitting by a stream, whatever that is, gardening, sniffing a flower, it puts you back in your body. It puts you back into that natural state, even for just a few minutes. And again, there is a ripple effect. You do that for a few minutes, and the compounding effect of it just keeps building and building and building over time. And you'll see it showing up significantly in your life, where all of a sudden you'll be like, wait a minute, how did all this change in my life? How did all this shift? And it's like, oh, it's because of these little tiny, tiny micro steps that you've been taking every day just to recalibrate in nature.
No, I get that. When I was in Orcas 2 years ago, the downtown of East Sound is littered in the best possible way with the most amazing smelling flowers. And so
Mm.
I'm walking downtown and I'm stopping, I'm talking to the lilacs, I'm sniffing the peonies. I'm just like, I am the irises, like the scented irises, and I'm just loving it. And all the adults are like, "What is wrong with her?" And all the kids are like, "I want to sniff that flower." It was really funny to see because like I was reconnecting with all that is,
Mhm.
and there was like this fear almost of what is she doing?
Mhm.
And it just told me like where everybody is in their journey. Because like for me, like sticking my nose in a flower is like one of the coolest things ever.
I know. Sometimes when I go on my walks too, and I like to put my hand on the bark of a tree or just like wrap my arms around a trunk. And when I first started doing this, I thought people were going to think I'm crazy. And then I'm like, I'm not the crazy one though, right? Like,
Right.
this is normal.
Mhm. No, I know. I've hugged trees in like in Bend and in Portland, Oregon, and I'm just like full on, "Hey, how are you?" And I can feel like the what is she doing? And I'm like, I don't care. This tree asked, or this like I was at a park last week, and this boulder just was like, "Hey, sit here." I was like, okay. And then she said, take your shoes off. And I did. And it was just so amazing that she felt that I needed to be in her presence. And it was like, we all have this ability. We really
Yeah.
do. We just have to slow down and allow it to come through.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a choice. And we just have to be making that choice intentionally.
Yeah. it's such a fascinating state to remember.
I love that you use that word, remember, because it is a remembrance.
And
Mhm.
how, like, I mentioned before I press record, like how recently I've always known about the I am presence. And yet to embody the awareness of my I am presence is a completely different thing than just intellectualizing it.
Right. Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, I can have a conversation with my I am presence because I am my I am presence. And this is a fractal of that I am presence. And that shift in awareness, it's not just awareness, it's an embodiment of it. And it's like, oh, okay, so I'm this construct and I'm multidimensional in this dimension because I have way too many gifts and I try to use all of them. But to know that that part of me, the multidimensional aspect of this third dimensional construct, is still a small segment of the I am that I am, is just, it's just such a, it's too hard to wrap one's head around.
hmm
And it's definitely a feeling.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think women just naturally know how to operate from an embodied state and that we can read books as much as we like. And I'm an avid reader. I love to read. But I found that I was like trying to intellectually embody
Mm-hmm.
my divine self,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Versus just stepping outside and all of a sudden I naturally align to my divine self.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we can get caught in that cycle of trying to think our way into embodiment, but we would never will. We never, I don't believe that's possible. We have to actually feel our toes in the soil. We have to actually smell that sweet iris. We actually have to feel the stream in between our fingers. And that's what activates the divinity within us.
Mm. Oh, I love that. My left brain, because I'm a former academic, loves studying quantum physics
Oh,
because
me too.
it's
Yes, I am an academic as well. So I can geek out in science all day long, but yes.
so it's just it's like it's this ability because my right brain, because I've been doing energy healing with animals for 5 years, and so I know what comes through. I don't have to question it. I'm like literally a conduit for it. And yeah, my left brain's like, but I really want to. I want to try to wrap my head around it. It's like, okay, honey, you can study classes in quantum physics if you want. You can like
Mm,
get entanglement and get, the how, whatever you focus on becomes the probability that of all the possibilities. This part of me, the one that loves to study and the one that loves research, loves that.
yeah.
And so like when I feel myself getting agitated of the I am presence, I'll like find an article. Go ahead, go read that. Go read that. And
Yeah.
it's like satisfy that need.
Yes, that's kind of what my EEG headband was. It's like here I was, like I know intuitively, my body knows that there's a shift, but there was also, okay, let me just like placate my mind and my logical mind and just show through like scientific evidence that actually my brain waves did shift. And it's like, oh yeah, see it right here. It's right here on my computer. It did shift. And but I also know through my body that it did shift.
Right, right. And it's just constant, it's not a battle, but it's just like, how do we integrate all three brains
Yes.
and the mind, body, spirit? Because it is this constant, like, I right now body is like, hey, I want all the attention. I'm like, you got it, honey, whatever you need. But through that, like I'm getting the emotional support, I'm getting the spiritual support, because as I slow down and I'm doing this self-care through the nutrition, through the baths, through the walks, through the whatever it is, I get that integrated approach.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. There was a practice I used to do, and I go back and forth with doing it, but it's in the morning, and I did a check-in with my spiritual self, with my heart, with my brain, with my inner child, like asking each part what she needs or
Mm.
what message she has for me. And then I just followed through with that, making sure that everybody was heard. So it wasn't like they were competing for my attention, because for a while I was really out of balance. And so my mind mostly got most of the airtime. And so when I started to pause in the morning and asking each part of myself what message she had and what she needed, that really helped harmonize all the parts of myself.
That's beautiful. Have you ever helped men?
When I first started practicing years ago, um, before I even went full time into this, I did work with a couple of men. Um, And it's not like I'm against working with men. I just feel like in this day and age of this paradigm shift right now, like men had a head start, at least in the patriarchal system that we operate in. So they are like way ahead of us. We look at this in just the pay gaps that we have.
Mm.
We look at this with like, politics and religion and all sorts of things. And I want to boost women up so that we are on equal levels. When we are balanced and equal, I'd be happy to work with men, but I want to work with women right now so that we have an equal playing field. I would love one day to work with men or even a male coach and partner with a male coach about teaching the divine feminine for men and women, because this isn't
Yeah,
about gender,
right.
but I really just feel like women need a bit more support right now.
Well, yeah, because we're I don't know if you've been feeling the Schumann resonance and all the solar flares and everything, but like I definitely feel dramatic shifts going underway. And I know the Dalai Lama said it once, like Western women will lead the world. And so for
Mhm.
us to stand in our not power, it's our individual power, it's our inner power and the beingness of that. And it's because I see how it's reflected to me from others, like where my consciousness is and how I'm being shown, and all the men on TikTok that try to follow me. But like it's a frequency thing, and like I'm not doing anything. I barely post videos anymore, but it's my frequency. So
Mhm.
if I remember that I'm embodying a frequency, that is helping to shift the consciousness.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was speaking with one of my clients today, and she was sharing how the people around her are completely changing without her having a conversation, but it is because her frequency has shifted. So, yeah, just that alone is powerful enough to change the world.
Yeah. And having the aware, like it's not like I'm not coming from an ego place because like I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel it, and it's just this embodiment. And I've known like this journey that I've been on, I'm either um, planting or activating light around the state of Oregon,
Mhm.
and it's really interesting because I can feel it. I don't really understand it from an intellectual space, but I do embody it, and so I just witness it. And
Yeah.
it's really like, oh, this is like 10 years ago when I was traveling around Oregon with my former partner, I'd plant rose quartz around different. I need to pull over here and just plant a rose quartz here. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have like 20 rose quartz. I just need to like drop one here. He's like, okay. And it was just, so this has been like a long thing for me. But now it's like I don't have to have the physical. It's just a matter of like me recognizing that I can place the intention that I'm activating in, or um, whatever it is that I'm doing. Thank
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So beautiful.
you. What is your favorite aspect of what you bring through in the world?
My favorite aspect. It's so hard to pick one, but I think when I pull back and I look at my spiritual journey, while it was very winding and I never had held in my mind that where I stand today was where I was going, I see now that everything was set up kind of for me to thrive and fulfill my soul's purpose. Even the family that I was born into, thinking about the women that are in my, like even both sides, my paternal and my maternal line, but like I'm really, really connected to my maternal line and have really been reflecting on the challenges they went through with their own self-worth and how that was passed down to me and how through my own challenges of self-worth really probably got me into the work that I am in today, and how my love for nature also led me to where I am today, and how all of these things were just like breadcrumbs to where I am. And just pulling back of how beautiful and unique my life is by simply following the joy, the passion, my soul, and just taking time out each day to listen to that part of myself.
Not so much. Yeah, I do a practice where in the morning, I ask what will create a fantastic day.
I love that question.
Bunch of one-word question or responses like meditate, play music, or walk and ground and all these things. So it's like a bunch of little one-word things. And then I ask the second question is, what does my soul want to tell me? And I get these amazing reflections that small self receives, but would never actually necessarily say to itself. And so it's
Yeah.
beautiful, just like ability to see myself from a different perspective, a higher perspective. And it helps the small self within me to remember more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. I'm looking at the clock and I'm realizing that we're winding down. So I'm going to ask you the final question, which is how do people find you?
Oh, you can visit me on Instagram at I am Jen Whitaker. I also have a podcast called Rooted Women Rise. And yeah, you can visit me on either of those. And I'm happy to also gift a free workbook that's my 7 divine feminine rituals for abundance. And through that, you'll be added to my biweekly email list. And so you'll get all sorts of fun little ponderings and tips as well. So I would love to stay connected that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is such a beautiful conversation.
It really is. And Jennifer, I just want to reflect to you, it is such an honor and a joy to know that you are on the planet with me at this time in consciousness.
Thank you. I fully receive that.
You're so welcome.